Hello, welcome to Behind the Amish Curtain. I'm Jenny. In this video, I interviewed Eldon and his cousin Ellen about Amish weddings. And we threw in a couple of other questions as well, but this was something that I had discussed with Ellen when we were hanging out one day. And we said, yeah, we need to make a video about that because it sounded like there were many details about the Amish, the way they do their weddings, that is just very different than the English. And then it sounds like it differed from the Mennonite as well, because the Mennonite seems to be a little bit more like English. So here's a video about Amish weddings. I hope you enjoy.
Don't the
Amish get married on Friday?
Yeah.
Because the English get married on Saturday, right?
Right.
And sometimes on Thursdays.
Yeah, sometimes Thursdays or
Sometimes
Wednesdays,
Thursday.
depending on how far the franchise have to travel.
Oh, and that means what? Family.
The family has to travel
The
pretty far.
family has to travel, yeah. Or, your friends or whatever. But yeah, if you had to go distance, that's what it would be. But otherwise, yeah, they would sing the songs. You had certain songs for weddings. You had,
It sound like you're going to a funeral?
yeah, it doesn't sound like going to a funeral. It was always loud. I always thought singing was loud, which in a funeral you don't have songs except for when they go through
To view the body.
to view the body last time in the property, I guess.
Okay, so the way an English wedding works is it's usually scheduled for sometime in the afternoon. Most of them are in the afternoon. And depending on where the venue is, whether it's outside or inside or whatever, the whole wedding party would show up in the morning usually, and they would all get dressed and get ready. Sometimes they might have had their hair done somewhere that morning, and so they would have their hair done, and then they would go to the church or wherever it was. And then they would have the ceremony in the afternoon. The bride and the groom are not supposed to see each other the night before and leading up to the ceremony. That's just kind of tradition. So do the Amish have any kind of traditions like that?
Kind of similar. They even though they would see each other during the day, but the night they would not get to see each other until they get married the next day. Because they would help plan what needs to be planned as far as the food and who where what sits, family. But yeah, mornings of the wedding starts at 9 and usually ends by 12. Yeah, they would have kind of like, it is in a church.
But do they travel to the wedding together? To be at the wedding ceremony?
No, they would be separate to go.
So it's in the morning.
Yeah, it's in the morning.
It always starts at 9.
It always starts at 9.
Wow.
And it's done by 11:30.
Okay, so if I were to go to an Amish wedding, what would I expect? I would arrive before 9 o'clock, well before 9 o'clock,
You don't
right?
have to. You could arrive at halftime. What I call halftime.
Halftime. This isn't football game.
Yeah, they're not throwing any yellow flags. But it's when they get up to read the scripture. There'll be a deacon usually that
Okay.
will read the scripture. And that is usually about the wedding, how the bride and groom are dressed and the invitation for the lunch and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's where a lot of the outside people, such as English people, would come, or some of them that have left the Amish, and you would come at a later time instead of sitting through the whole thing of the German songs, 3 or 4 German songs before they do the preaching. A lot of them don't understand what's being sung, and they don't want to be sitting there.
But isn't it whenever when they start singing at 9 o'clock, then the bride and groom get up and go into the room where the preachers are?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that you and I
I'm not
talked
sure-
about.
I'm not sure what they do, but they have a discussion or something, and then they come back downstairs and sit with their bridal party, and then finally the preachers come down, and then after they come down, then they stop singing, and that's when they start preaching.
They actually meet upstairs.
Okay, so Eldon, you've been married Amish.
Yeah.
So what is in that meeting?
They will ask you to make sure that you are involved in.
Gene.
If you're still interested of getting married, and what your obligations are of getting married, and if this is what you guys want to do, then do you still feel for each other? And so they ask that upstairs before you go down. So when you go down, so the I call them Nebenhokels.
Witnesses.
The witnesses are upstairs, so they will pair up. As they come out of their room, they will come over and open the door and say, "Okay, we're ready now to go down." So this is just the bride and groom and the witnesses, and they'll follow each other down. And they've got chairs set specially for these 6 people. And so when they start the service, the bishop will get up and say they have talked to the couple and they are agreed to go ahead in the process of getting married. This process. So, and then he'll sit back down, and sometimes they don't even get up. The bishop just sits and says they had their meeting with the couple, and they have agreed to go on with the process of the marriage ceremony. And so, and then the preacher, whoever is to start the service, will get up and will share. In that time frame, these 6 people will not go to the restroom. They will sit there throughout the whole sermon, which is from 9 to... Well, actually, it'd be probably more like 9:20 to 9:30. What time they come down, because they got to meet the pastors upstairs, the preachers, and so it would probably be closer to 9:30 by the time they get down, and then sit there until 11:30. So, and when they are, as far as the bride and groom are up there to answer the questions, from the bishop, it's the bishop that marries them. It's not just a regular preacher.
Is it in German?
Everything is in German.
It's not in Dutch.
No, it's in German. It's in German. All the preaching is supposed to be done in German. There's some of them that are putting English in with it,
But they do the Pennsylvania Dutch language so more people can understand it.
Yeah, are they how are they asking the questions? They have to understand the questions
Dutch.
to answer them.
Versprechst du bei der Ehe säga?
That is High German.
Yeah,
that is High German.
German.
Oh my goodness.
So, and all these questions are asked before, day or 2 before you are married. In other words, they'll tell you what the questions are going to be, and then it's your response, yes or no, or ja or nej. Yes or no. And so, yeah, you get to hear this before the wedding. So this is not new that they're asking you these questions.
They're just doing it in public with witnesses.
They're just now doing it in public and with witnesses. So once they get up there to ask, and they have answered their questions and shared their marriage vows, there's no ring, there's no kiss, no kiss or anything like that. But they will hold hands and ask the church to stand and pray while they put their hands together and pray. And so when they're done praying, the whole church sits down, but the witnesses will stand up yet. They will not go down until they come back and stand where they're supposed to be seated then.
Do they pray out loud?
Yeah. But it's German. Everything's German. And so...
And it's a ritual probably that they have the same prayer every time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
It's for a wedding. So they will sit down once the bride and groom comes back to their chair. They will sit down because they sit in chairs with the back and everything. But all the others, they will sit on a hard bench with no back. One song after that, which is page 26 in the little black books. I can tell you that now, page 26. And I could probably sing it, but I'm not going to.
Did you go to a lot of weddings?
Absolutely. If you're famous, you get invited. But it's not that, though. It's not famous. It's about friendship. It's about families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of family.
And friends.
And friends, yeah. And then, yeah, you all go to either it's the neighbors or down the road somewhere, or sometimes it's on the own property where you'll have a tent for the church, and then you have the garage and the house for the food, the wedding.
So they have a reception, like celebration, just pretty much like the English do.
Oh, but it's way more food than.
Oh, I'm
They
sure.
have lunch and then they have dinner.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
So-
at dinner time, the youth from both churches, like if they're from separate different church districts, each set of those youth group come in and they'll partner up with a
With
girl.
evenings, yeah,
They'll
that's-
pick a girl out of the room and take them downstairs to.
Depending if
supper.
it's cold, if
I
it's cold
see.
outside, they come up in the rooms. If it's nice outside, they'll pair up on the outside evenings. But then for lunch, it's the family, and then the immediate family of the kids, whatever. They'll be sitting right up front. They'll have a wedding cake sitting in the corner, and they usually have the bridegroom and the witnesses. What they call that? I want to call it a souvenir, but
kind of a plaque
yeah,
that has
it's a plaque in
all
the
the
back
names
of
of everybody on
all
there.
the table
Oh,
waiters
okay.
and the witnesses and the one that married him. So anyway, then after lunch, and you will probably have anywhere from, in my wedding, there was probably 125, 130 there. In the weddings that they have now, you're probably looking at closer to 325 to 350
Yeah.
people there. And some of them
I've
even more
heard
than
they've
that.
had
Yeah.
600 lately.
I've heard of that.
So
yeah.
it keeps growing on that part. So then after the weddings are with, they have the table waiters come after the meal, they have the table waiters come and take all your plates, and then they prepare to sing. So after they are done eating, they'll sit there and they'll sing songs. And most of these are in German too. And I have heard recently that they are singing some of them that make their own copies of the songs and pass the folders out instead of singing out of these little black books. I'm trying to think of the name of the song book that we used to have in the Amish churches, but Liedersammeln or something like that. Anyway, so instead of singing so much out of that, they now have songs picked out, and some of them are in English, which is good.
Okay, so go back to the table waiters. So this is something that is different from English weddings, because with English weddings, you typically have the whole catering thing, and that's a huge expense. And so you told me that you got married for how much money?
Less than $1,000.
And that was in,
That included
84.
the food?
Yeah,
and that was in when?
we paid
80,
for all of it.
84, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell me about table waiters and how all of that's done, because it's like friends and family that help with that, right?
Yes,
they do
would
it.
come together like 3 or 4 days before the actual wedding, and they would help decide which plates get put where. They don't have paper plates. This is all
Yeah.
glass plates that is sitting here.
Wow.
And then the silverware, it's all silverware. It's not the plasticware. So, and they have tables that come in a wagon that are designed for weddings. So you have to figure out where which table goes where and how big you can go. So they have different sizes for different areas of your house that will work and fit for your house. There's a lot of planning that is done 4 or 5 days before the actual wedding is, because they've got to get that stuff organized. So back then, it's like I said, we didn't have that many people.
So the way the English would do it, the English have honeymoons. And so that's a bonding period. Do the Amish have any kind of bonding period?
No.
No.
So after the night of the wedding, so let me go on down the line of, there's another service of an evening.
Oh.
So it's not. It's
Look
not
at Ellen. She's
it's
like,
not a
what?
preaching service, but there's a service of an evening that, participate as far as once you're set, Then you have a preacher that will come and say, when we're all gathered together, let's pray for the meal, and that everybody's quiet. You have everybody really loud, and all of a sudden when the preacher gets up and says, "Vamos a sin valavera," it's just like he gets everybody's attention. Everybody's quiet. It's all silent. And as soon as that's over with, then everybody's loud again. And so they pass the food, just like we were talking about that earlier, as far as the young kids. Well, let me back it up. Before the young kids get there at 6:30, maybe 6, whatever, the neighbors and the immediate family will eat at 5 o'clock. They have meals already made for them at the 5. And so they have some empty tables that they'll leave for the youth and still have some of it at the corner of an evening. So, when the kids come then, and you'll have up to 300 kids or even more.
Wow.
That will come for, supper. So, and then, some of them have got a pen where they give pens out to, and then they also have a guest list where you have to sign, your name, who's all there. Then after that, they will sing songs. And there again, nowadays they are handing out, I call them flowers, not flowers, but anyway, individual paper with the songs on it so they can sing, those songs instead of the German. And then after that, used to be in the day, back in my day, they used to have chivariers.
Oh, yeah. That's what we needed to talk about. I had never heard of that.
So after they were done eating, you have some of the people that were invited would go out and get displays and bang them together. Or they had a huge bandsaw on a stand.
What?
And they would take wrenches. Turns. 9, 10, 12, 14 kids banging on this band blade. And they kept on doing that until somebody would come out with candy or cigars or something and treat them. And that went for a little bit, but that eventually got stopped, saying that's a no-no. We can't do something that is wrong to treat them and say, well, we're now going to give you food because, this is now to be stopped.
Well, and sometimes they would do pretty crazy things, wouldn't they?
When they would not get treated, some of them would call the cops. And so when they did not get treated, I've seen houses get painted with words.
What?
With words on the siding.
When my cousin George and Lorraine got married, they got married on Memorial Day, on the Tuesday or Thursday before it was Memorial Day weekend. Maybe it was on a Tuesday, because back then they did it Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they literally destroyed windows.
Oh yeah.
They had chainsaws.
Yeah.
And they came in through the windows. It was so foggy and steamy. Most of us had to leave because the gas fumes were in there, and they literally ruined windows. And they were so mean. My Uncle Ben was the dad to George. He went out the door and he came back in. They dumped water all over him, and he went out to give them candy and stuff to make him go. They were wild.
Well, is the idea to harass the husband and wife? Is that kind of the idea?
It's supposed to be a celebration, but some of them get so intoxicated, and so when they're intoxicated, they really don't care what they're doing anymore.
Right.
Literally disrespect. But and then as time went on, instead of not treating them, they decided, okay, so whoever is shivering, they could come in and get their treat from the corner, so that way everybody can see who is shivering. Otherwise, it's dark on the outside, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you can't see them. And some of them had the stocking cap on, some of them had a hat on, some of them had a hood on. So, yes, for a lot of those, you couldn't tell who they were. But yeah, chainsaws and displays and wrenches and the big old bandsaw.
Yikes.
And it was kind of fun, to be honest with you. I kind of enjoyed it. I got to help with it one time, and then the other time I was kind of scared because they're going to call the cops.
Uh-huh.
Which they probably should have called the cops on us. That wasn't very nice at that time. But anyway, it was kind of the ritual thing of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would sing, and usually they knew what the last song was. And so when they would start their last song is when they would start shivering. And I always thought, they were chivalry because they wanted the bride and the groom to kiss.
Yeah, that's
But
what I would think too.
I've never seen them do that. I've never seen them kiss, so I don't know. Is that really the reason why the chivalry?
Because Amish wouldn't really do that.
It was just another excuse to go tear around.
Yeah,
So you say they don't do that stuff anymore?
No. That's all kind of stuff. But now, it's maybe even got worse than that, because now they'll go tear up the place where the bride and groom live. They'll find out where they live 6 weeks later. They'll go mess up their place. They'll bust into their house and they'll put needles in the bed. When they get into bed, they got needles and just
Today they do that.
Yeah, they just started maybe
That's
I don't know, 3 or 4
awful.
years ago. So they don't chivalry, but they do other stuff that are, not very brilliant. But
So where do the bride and groom go? Do they typically have a home ahead of time, and
they will sleep normally right there at the parents' house, right there where they're at. They'll stay there for the night. And then the next morning, you've got all this food to process. You've got all the dishes and stuff that they rented or they got, from somebody, friends, family, as far as glasses and silverware sets to china and all that good stuff. I mean, you have a lot of mixing bowls that are brought just to help out.
Is there gifts? Are there gifts?
Yes, there's gifts. Most times, you will open those gifts up after they get done singing in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So
old
that's
men,
done at
old
the
folks
wedding.
singing.
Okay.
They don't always get that done. I think nowadays they kind of leave that until of an evening to open it up. And now I think evening weddings are kind of canceled. Or I say canceled, but as far as opening the gifts, they don't open those up anymore. They wait now until the next day to open them up.
Yeah.
Because they used to open them up in front of other people and other people can see what they got. But now there's so many of them that they wait. Go on a honeymoon maybe weeks after or maybe a year later that will go on a honeymoon.
Some of them will.
It's not right that night. Nah, that's too much like the English would do. And you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't be like the English.
Yeah, so back in my day, flowers were not accepted on the table. You could not have flowers on the table. Nowadays, that's not kind of a going thing. I don't know what happened. I think the soil might have changed a little bit. The flowers look a little different or something.
Some communities, not in Illinois, but some states, in some of those communities, they're not allowed to have flowers or cakes.
Yeah, that's still pretty strict on it.
So Ellen, were you married Mennonite? How does that differ?
We had an afternoon wedding,
Okay.
and we got to see each other because we were all at the church. But we got the food. I didn't, but the ones that were in charge of the food, they got that ready. And then we have servers that would serve the food. And then we'd have a bridal table. So we'd have the wedding where Dale and I walked down the aisle together to go up to the front of the church. And then our witnesses did the same thing. And then when they got up to the church, then they split out. Like, the ladies stood here and the men stood here. And then we'd go back down. Then we'd greet people as they were walking out of the church. But we had the reception in the basement.
Okay.
And then we'd go and sit at our table and everybody would be in the basement and they'd follow through and get their food. And then after that, they left and we took off and went on our honeymoon.
It sounds very similar to English then.
Yeah.
So,
pretty much.
There wasn't anything in the ceremony like the singing that the Amish do, nothing like that.
No.
Do you kind of choose?
I had singers. We had singers.
Okay.
And those girls, they sang. And then when, I forget what song it was they sang when we walked down the aisle. We had a special song that they had for that.
Oh. Oh yeah. So with the Amish, did they have any music or singing when they were walking down the aisle, or they don't? They don't really have an. They don't walk down the aisle. That's right.
Come from the neighbors.
That's right. That's something that is different.
No, that would be too much.
Too much like English.
Too much like the English. Yeah. No rings.
We didn't have rings. We didn't kiss.
Okay.
and we didn't have flowers. We had flowers on the table, the bridal table where we ate, but that was the only flowers.
But you didn't have a
But
bouquet.
today, the Mennonite churches are more, the Beachy churches are more liberal, so they do have flowers, and they do things differently than what we did.
Right.
But you're talking 1980. That's a long time ago. Where now I think they have flowers and stuff. Yeah, it's more decked out, more fancy.
More fancy.
And I didn't wear white. I had to wear cream color.
You had to.
At that time, the Beachy Church there did not allow pure white. It could be off-white, or more. It leaned more towards a creamy color.
What was the purpose of
Yeah.
why
They weren't allowed to have white dresses, even though white is.
You weren't considered pure, I guess. Interesting.
I don't know why I'd have that.
But yeah, that's what they would wear in the table waiters. They might have had a blue, light blue, or dark blue dress, and then they had the white cape and apron, whatever. Yeah, that was kind of the going thing. Otherwise, yeah, it was always a cleanup afterwards. After the wedding, when you went outside, either that night or the next morning early, you went outside and you got maybe 3 or 4 wheelbarrows full of beer cans and trash.
What?
Yeah.
How is there beer at an Amish wedding?
So, yeah, that's just how they used to trash the place after the wedding. There's a lot of people get intoxicated. And depending on when you got married, if it was on Memorial Day weekend or if it was on a weekend of a holiday, yeah, you had party all night. I mean, you had people out there that just didn't not go to bed.
Wow.
So, yeah, some of that got a little carried away, but yeah, that's kind of the story of how it is in a wedding, an Amish wedding.